Hello, welcome Slashers, Navcrypt here, and welcome back to Forgotten Horror, where I talk about forgotten pieces of art and highly underrated media. Now, today is my birthday, right? As this video goes up, not as I'm recording this, but when this video goes up, it will be my birthday. And so, yeah, make sure to drop some birthday wishes. But for today, I wanted to bring back this series, Forgotten Horror, for my birthday because, well, I've been wanting to bring back Forgotten Horror for a very long time. I only ever did one episode, and that episode was for The Hills Run Red, and it did okay, I guess, like performance and view-wise. I really want to do another one of these, and I want to continue to do these more often, more than not, and so I figure now is the time to get back into Forgotten Horror. For today's video, I want to talk about a very underrated slasher flick that I grew up with. Now, this slasher flick was critically panned by a ton of people, but I still love it. It is The House of Wax, the remake, released April 26th, 2005, which is a couple days before my birthday. It was directed by
Joan Collett Sarah.
I'm sorry if I butchered that, I'm really bad with names. Other than this film, he is best known for directing that genius Orphan movie. The Orphan, the one that's getting the prequel with Esther. He is the genius behind directing that amazing movie. House of Wax was written by two people apparently. Chad Hayes and Carrie W. Hayes. The House of Wax, like I said, was in fact critically panned by a bunch of people. Critics as well as horror fans even. To a lot of people, this film is notoriously known for that one terrible remake. Well, I mean, besides the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, which I will argue this film is 10 times better than. And yes, it is a remake, and I will get more into that later on in this video. But in my opinion, this film has a lot of great things to offer. And I do understand some of the critiques, but I still can't help but love this movie. Films much like Urban Legend and Darkness Falls, which I will eventually cover on this series, but those films, much like House of Wax, are films I have very fond childhood memories with. These are films that were pretty big parts of my childhood besides Chucky. A lot of these films I grew up with have that early 2000s vibe that I just can't help but love. The new metal soundtracks, the editing, the story, some of the dialogue, it's just unmatched. If you guys grew up watching these kind of horror movies in the early 2000s, you guys probably understand what I mean. It's pretty hard to explain, really. Much like the previous film that I covered on this series as the first episode, almost 3 years ago, The Hills Run Red, this film is also a Dark Castle movie. Which, to be fair, The House of Wax and The Hills Run Red are probably not the only Dark Castle films that I will cover on this series, because there's a lot of horror movies released to Dark Castle, and I'm definitely going to be covering those as well. House of Wax had a budget of $40 million, and The House of Wax reportedly made $70.1 million in the box office. But now, I feel like it's time that I explain what exactly House of Wax is and why I love it so much. The House of Wax is a slasher horror flick about a group of college friends, including a man named Wade, played by Jared Padalecki, who has a history of going up against serial killers like Jason Voorhees, before being in a show called Supernatural. But the film is about him and his girlfriend Carly, played by Alicia Cuthbert, I hope I didn't butcher that, who is in The Girl Next Door in the series The Ranch, where they're en route to a school football game when they wind up with a flat tire in a ghost town. They are forced to seek help in the only place that's open, the local wax museum. Once inside the spooky and seemingly abandoned building, they find the works on display are not quite what they seem, and the group soon discovers it's being hunted by the insane twin brothers who run the museum. Did I also mention that this film has Paris freaking Hilton in it? House of Wax, released in 2005, is actually a remake. Like I said before, a remake to a film of the same name, which was released April 10th, 1953. But with this said, they are not connected to each other at all story-wise, as they are set in completely different universes. But from what I can notice, they do have some similarities to each other. Interesting enough, both the original and the remake of House of Wax are loosely based on a horror story, which was written by Charles S. Belden, named The Waxworks. And strangely enough, the House of Wax that was released in 1953 is also a remake to a film released in 1933. This film, however, is named Mystery of the Wax Museum, which I think House of Wax is better, name-wise. More recognizable, more to the point, just a better name. So I can see why in the future they just went under House of Wax instead of Mystery of the Wax Museum. However, I've never seen the original House of Wax or Mystery of the Wax Museum. So if you guys would like to see a comparison between Mystery of the Wax Museum, the House of Wax released in 1953, and the House of Wax movie released in 2005, which I'm talking about in this video, let me know. I will do a comparison between all three of them if you guys really want to see it. Just let me know in the comments. But to get back on track, I shit you not, the killer in this movie is pretty damn frightening. And yes, the plot synopsis does mention insane twins. And I didn't really acknowledge that in what I just said. And that's because one of these twins in particular really does steal the show. But please, let me get to that and explain why this film is underrated. Like I said, I really do love the early 2000 vibes that films like House of Wax give off. In some ways, some of these films may come off as a little bit cheesy or cringe. And yes, some early 2000s horror movies do fall under this criteria for me, for example, Stay Alive, or that shitty Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2 movie. Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2 is one of the most infuriatingly terrible fucking movies I've ever seen. But you know what? I digress. I should get off the topic of talking about this shitty piece of shit fucking shit dumpster of a movie and talk about an actual great fucking movie like House of Wax 2005. Let's continue. So to move on to why I really love the House of Wax. Something that's interesting about the House of Wax, right, is that the location itself is a character. And we don't see that in a lot of modern horror movies nowadays. They actually went out of their way to build not only wax sets for the film, but wax miniatures for the sets and everything. And I can't remember for sure if all this stuff is actually made out of real wax. I think it is. I remember hearing from somewhere that this stuff is actually made of wax, but I can't quite remember where I heard it from. But they built a whole ass small town for this film, and they used digital effects to truly bring this film completely to life. And some of the effects have aged pretty damn well, I say, and some haven't. Apparently, House of Wax was filmed at Warner Bros. Movie World, Australia. The town used in this film was constructed a few miles down the road, off a road called Hollandale Road in the Guanaba area. But interestingly, this film was nominated for and won a few awards. It was nominated for 2 Razzies for Worst Picture and Worst Remake or Sequel, and won a Razzie for Worst Supporting Actress, that being Paris Hilton. It was nominated for Best Film, Best Original Score for a horror/thriller movie by John Ottman, which I could totally get behind. I really do love the OST for the House of Wax. It is fucking amazing. Paris Hilton also got a nominee for Best Frightened Performance and even got an award for Choice Movie Scream Scene. I guess I can understand where some of the hate for the House of Wax comes from, but I still can't help but love this fucking movie. And I feel like it's time I fully get into why I love this movie without spoiling anything for the people who do want to see the House of Wax that may have not seen it yet. Like I said, the whole setting is a character. And the work that they put into these props and these sets all really shows. The kills in this movie are all pretty damn awesome as well, and some of them even look quite realistic. This film definitely has some of the best kills. But it's time that I get to the character that truly steals the show for me. And that is Paris Hilton. I'm just kidding, guys. It's Vincent Sinclair. He is the killer of the film. He is the one going around, murdering, cutting people up. That's him, Vincent Sinclair. He wears a wax face mask to cover up his face because half of his face is missing. Right? See, the reason for this is because he was born as a conjoined twin to a character that also appears quite frequently in this movie by name of Bo. And they had to separate him at birth, pretty much. And so, he's just missing half of his face. And a part of his character is working on this wax face to pretty much cover his scars and the part of his face that's missing. But he's always trying to keep his wax face looking quite smooth. Throughout the film, though, you'll see that Vincent is quite the artist. And he is the one responsible for the wax sculptures. What I really like is how the wax mask that he wears, you can't really see his eyes through it unless he gets really close to the camera. It sort of gives off... I don't know how to quite explain it. Do people usually use the word uncanny for something like this? I just really like the way that looks. It makes them look creepy and lifelike, but to the point where there's no life within those eyes. I don't know the best way to put it, but I really like how it looks. It really makes him look more sinister and scary in my opinion. His long hair also adds a little bit more onto his appearance. Vincent's twin is also a pretty evil bastard, but like I said, I won't be spoiling anything for the people who have not seen this movie yet. But there is a genuine backstory for these twins in this movie. They kind of show you something at the very beginning of the film, and then later on, at the end, it shows something and it makes a little bit more sense. And you kind of start to put two and two together. I'm not going to say what it is, but I know that when I was a kid, I didn't notice it, but growing up, I now understand better. It's really interesting when you really see the background stuff that they kind of set up, and you get to really understand exactly the upbringing of these twins. And like I said, I'm not going to spoil anything, which makes it even harder to explain, but when you watch it, hopefully you'll understand what I mean, or if you've already seen this movie, hopefully you get what I'm trying to say. But speaking of the twin of Vincent, right? Like I said, Vincent's twin's name is Bo, and much like Vincent, he is a major threat in this movie. So much so, just to show you how threatening he could be, let me show you this alternative opening for House of Wax that was removed from the film. In this cut opening, it shows Bo killing some random woman by the name of Jennifer. And, well, I'll let the clip speak for itself.
Road service.
Yeah, I called for a tow truck 30 minutes ago.
Let me check on that.
Never mind, it's here. Hello? Hello? It's over here.
Honestly, I can see why this opening was not used for this movie, and overall why this cut was killed. And oh my god. And overall why this kill was cut. It's overall very cheesy, dumb, and unrealistic. And I'm overall glad that they cut this opening out of the film. Overall, this movie was something I watched frequently growing up. And though some people hate this movie to its core, god damn it, I love it. And hey, I understand that it's not for everyone. I'm happy to be doing this as a second episode of Forgotten Horror, especially since I've been thinking about bringing this series back, and I've been thinking about what I want the second episode to be. And I've also thought of interesting ways to vamp up this series and make it into something more. And that brings me to the scoreboard before we end off this video. So what we have here is a scoreboard slide where I'm gonna rate the film based on what I think for each of these categories. For the first category, underrated or forgotten. Definitely not forgotten, but I feel like it's definitely underrated in my opinion. Does it deserve more recognition? In my opinion, yes, it does, a little bit more than what it gets. It gets a lot of hate. Maybe it's because I grew up watching this movie. I really love this movie, and watching it does give me a lot of nostalgic feels. Scary, fun, or dumb? Definitely fun. This film is a lot of fun. Definitely not scary. I just think it's a fucking fun movie, and it's a lot of fun to watch. Does it do a good job at what it's trying to do? In some aspects, it does okay, but the film can also be seen as doing a little much sometimes. In my overall verdict, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Definitely not perfect, but I fucking love it. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. What other forgotten or underrated horror movies should I cover for this series in the future? I do want to do more of these, and I hope that this series does do better over time, because I do enjoy doing videos like this. I've been really dying to do another episode for this series for so long, and I've had that intro for this series for literally, I want to say about 2 or 3 years. The intro that I used for this video, the Forgotten Horror one, it was made by none other than X-Men, who made the Shelved Horror intro, the Window's Attack intro. He made a lot of the merch on my merch store. The dude's awesome. I would definitely recommend checking him out. I'll leave his links down below, but he is the one that made the intro for this series, and he fucking killed it. But overall, that'll be all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content, and definitely subscribe to become a slasher. All social media links and my merch down below. Thank you guys so much for watching my new Forgotten Horror episode that I've been meaning to make another episode of this series for so long. And finally, we got one. I hope you guys enjoy it, and again, as this video goes up, it's my birthday, and I hope to see a ton of birthday wishes and a ton of you guys enjoying this video. And before I go, I'm gonna drink me a little bit of this flaming hot Mountain Dew to celebrate. It's a pretty interesting flavor, right? Ugh. What's weird is it tastes like regular Mountain Dew, but it has spicy undertones. It's the weirdest fucking thing I've ever drank. But I'm out here, and I'll catch you on next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget, guys, to keep on swashing.